Is this on? Yes. Okay.
You guys good?
Great.
Okay, welcome everyone, and thanks for joining us after lunch. I hope that the sugar will fuel you through our sessions this afternoon. My name is Kate Mifid. I'm on the program committee for the conference, and I'm really delighted to introduce you to Karlyn Borysenko and Jeff Stevens. Karlyn is with Zen Workplace, and Jeff is with the University of Florida Health. If you're wondering why I'm holding this box, it's because this session is also streaming out into the galaxy. We're excited to, you've heard at this point a couple of times now, please make sure your cell phones are off, and please complete the evaluations when the session is complete. We really appreciate your feedback. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to our speakers to talk about the art of presentation.
Hello, I'm Karlyn.
And I'm Jeff. And thank you for joining us today for Art of the Presentation. Today we're going to be talking about creating effective presentations.
And maybe our slide will advance.
Maybe it will. It did not. Technical difficulties right off the top.
A presentation not presenting? That's pretty Inception right there.
It is, because when we talk about presentations, we have to go deeper. When we talk about presentations, it's about the person in front, the words that they're saying, the visuals that they're showing, how the audience is feeling and how they're reacting to them. It's a really deep place because we're really connecting with each other. And sometimes when we reach that deep place, sometimes that's a place of fear.
You know, here's the thing. 40% of Americans are terrified of nothing more than getting up in front of a room. Second most popular fear in the country.
The number one fear of Americans? Snakes. Very dangerous. You go first. So, Ralph Waldo Emerson once said that speech is power. Speech is used to persuade, to convert, and to compel. And every time that we give a public speech, every time that we're talking to somebody else, these are things that we're thinking about behind the scenes. We're trying to persuade them towards our point of view. We're trying to convert them to a new way of thinking. We might be compelling them to take a new direction or think about things in a totally different way than they have before.
And here's the thing about presenting, too. Presenting is fun. It's not just about other people. It's about you. It's about building your confidence. It's about building your brand. I started presenting at conferences about 10 years ago now. I was such a shy little introvert back then. You know, things have changed. Things have changed. Let's just say that.
So I want to give you a statistic. Ian Parker in The New Yorker once tried to figure out how much money is wasted in America every day by poor presentations. So Microsoft states that 30 million PowerPoint presentations are given every day. So let's take some conservative figures here that Ian Parker put to that. If we assume that for every presentation, there are only 4 people in the room. I'm sure you've all had PowerPoint presentations with only 4 people in the room. If that presentation is only a half hour, we all know presentations only last a half hour. And if 1/4 of that presentation is a waste and is wasting their time, and the average salary of everybody in that room is $35,000, then that's $252 million a day wasted on poor presentations.
$252 million?
Yes, $252 million. That bears repeating one more time. $252 million. So, how do we solve the problem of bad presentations? That's what we're here to do today. And we're going to talk to you about how you can empower yourself to go and give presentations at conferences. So we're going to talk about the following subjects.
We're going to talk about crafting an idea. How do you come up with that brilliant subject that you're going to present about?
We're going to talk about how to submit to conferences.
We're going to talk about developing your tone and pitch. What is your unique voice?
We're going to talk about how important it is to practice and polish your presentation before you give it.
And we're going to talk about building your repertoire. How do you build a portfolio of presentations that you can live on over and over and over again?
That's a lot of stuff for us to do. So are you all ready?
Ready?
Are you all ready? All right.
Yes.
All right, let's get to it. So let's start with crafting the idea. To put this into framework, we started by asking other presenters that we know from other conferences some tips and tricks that they had for putting together effective presentations. And I want to start with a thing that Amanda Costello told us. If you've ever seen her presentation on how to take higher education silos and repurpose them to make them grow and evolve into something better, I would highly urge you to do that. We're also tweeting out magically behind the scenes as we're talking today, so some of these links are in our presentation if you follow that little hashtag down there in the corner.
And the thing about a good presentation.
We didn't say what she said.
Oh, well,
Why would she say what she said?
My name is on the slide, Jeff.
I know. Well, then say it. Practice. We said that. Go ahead.
The thing about a presentation is that it doesn't have to be the solution or the answer. Sometimes it's about being able to ask the questions clearly. So you don't have to think of it as standing up in front of a room and giving a how-to manual about how to do something. Sometimes you're just sparking, your source of inspiration, and then people can take that and apply it to whatever they're doing.
So when you're coming up with an idea for a presentation, that presentation is like a marriage. You're bringing Maria and Captain Von Trapp together. As you notice, there's a lot of Sound of Music slides in our presentation today. How many people in this room have seen Sound of Music? Okay,
oh, thank God.
Then we're not going to lose too many people as we continue to go. So the first thing that you're bringing together in that marriage is you've got to consider your audience. What does the audience want, and what does the audience need to hear? One of the reasons we put this together was after going to several different conferences, a lot of people talked about, I'd love to be able to put together a slide deck like you do and to do that talk. And there's nothing magical about what we do. It's just taking the time to do it, and that's why we thought this would be a great thing to do as a presentation. You listen to your community. You hear what are their needs, what are the things that they're talking about that they want to learn about. Maybe your team has experience in a new platform that nobody else has used. Maybe somebody else has given a theoretical talk or an inspirational talk at another conference, and you realize your team now has practical experience on how to do that thing. That's a great follow-up to that original presentation, and come to that. All of those are a start to a good talk. Mm-hmm. You also have to consider the technical ability and expertise of your audience. So if I'm talking to this group and I was talking about a web project that I do, I would use a higher level of technical talk than I would if I were talking to my Chamber of Commerce or if I were talking to somebody else. So listen to them, find out where the knowledge gaps are and what they talk about, and make sure that you change your language so it's plain language that they understand.
Mm-hmm. And then you need to think about yourself. What do you want to present about? What can you share with the world? What are you passionate about? I want to tell you guys little stories. So were any of you here last year or at Hyatt Web in 2014 when I did the Playing Politics talk? Anyone? Yeah, a couple of you? So here's what you don't know about that talk. So when I first developed that idea, submitted it to Hyatt Web in 2014, along with all sorts of other ideas, because I always submit more than one idea, and just see which one they're going to pick. So they picked that one, and I was working at a consulting company in Boston called EduVentures at the time. Tweet at them if you want. And I said, I got accepted to this really high-profile higher ed conference to do this talk about office politics. I think it's a great talk. I think I really want to go. And they said, no, you are not allowed to go to the higher ed conference and talk about office politics. Higher ed would not value that at all. And I said, well now, you know what? Look at all the ones I am. And I went anyway, and I went under my business's name, I self-funded, I did all that stuff because I knew that this was a good presentation. I knew it, but even then, I was still, I gotta be honest guys, like I was still really unsure of how it was going to be received because I hadn't seen a talk like that at a conference. I had never done one like that. And I got there, and I mean, pretty lucky, I think. The people were literally spilling out into the freaking foyer. They were sitting in all the aisles. The room was absolutely packed, and I got great feedback on it. And what I really want you guys to understand about this is I had to trust my instinct when it came to that. And it wasn't just about doing that presentation at Hyatt Web or at this conference last year. I now make a living off of this presentation. So wasn't what I expected, but you've got to trust your instinct when it comes to this stuff, and it can pay off big time.
The one thing you have to do when you trust your instinct is you have to be able to get past imposter syndrome. How many people in this room have ever suffered imposter syndrome? I'm suffering it right now. I know every time that I put in a talk, I think I've seen someone give a similar talk to the one that I've given, or there's something very close to it. And every time I think that, I'm like, why am I going to go and present? Why am I not just going to send them to a slide deck online? Why am I not going to send them to a YouTube video and just say, jinkies, I have this case all wrapped up? Well, in her keynote at the 2016 mini WebCon, Denise Jacobs summed up imposter syndrome by saying that you'll only consider imposter syndrome when you are competent and skilled, and that you should repeat that as many times as necessary. Remember, if you're selected to go to a conference and you're in this room, the people in the audience are rooting for you. They've paid to come to the conference. They want you to be successful because they're there paying money to hear you speak.
And the thing of it too is if you're not feeling imposter syndrome, that might be a little bit of a problem. I mean, to Jeff's point, if you're feeling like really nervous about doing it, that's probably okay. You're probably going to be okay. But the Dunning-Kruger effect is this idea that people who are incompetent tend to, let's say, overestimate themselves.
You mean like businessmen thinking they can be presidents? Oh,
I
when
might
did
be
that
exactly
happen?
like that.
Oh, wait. Right now. Oh. You can beat me up afterwards. So what you need to do is you need to have confidence in yourself. You need to have confidence in your own unique voice. Only you can be you. You have to have confidence in that, and that your voice is valuable. The way that you say something is different than anybody else says it, and that might reach a different person than anybody who went to those other presentations before you. Presenting is not a competition.
Well, sometimes it's a competition.
All right, Red Stapler winner. The way that I get through imposter syndrome is I come back to my Unitarian Universalist roots. Does anyone know Unitarian Universalism as a religion? Great, we reached 2% of the population, which is perfect. So often we talk about the Four Noble Truths in our religion, and I've kind of shifted those a little bit to the way that I use them when I think about imposter syndrome. First, it matters that you're here. You're in this room because you have skills and knowledge that your life experiences have led you to be here today, and that's very important. It matters. The work that you do matters. The way that you live your life matters. Like Sven was saying in his last one, being human and being caring, that's very important. That's part of being here. Your experiences are true. What you've gone through, what your office has gone through to do your work, that's a valid thing that each one of us should hear because we need to see those varied experiences to get a full picture of the ecosystems in which we work. And lastly, you don't have to go it alone. This is a community. This is a family. If you think you have issues with the talk that you're going to give, you can reach out to other people and use them as a sounding board to ask questions and get advice.
So now we're going to talk about submitting to conferences. And here's the thing, guys. So submitting to conferences, especially when you're first starting out, just something you have to do because you aren't going to have people reaching out and wanting to get you to speak. And it's not something, hang on. And it's not something you should really be intimidated by. You just have to suck it up, know that you have a great topic to present about, and put it out there.
I recommend that you do some research about it. If you look at the conferences you want to present at, you can often look at the schedules that they've put together. You can see the kind of talks that have been chosen for that place. You might see a style and tone that's in those proposals that get put in. There's some conferences that I go to that if you put a witty turn of phrase in your title and your copy is clever, they love that, and that will get you through a mountain of submissions that they might pick yours if there are 5 or 6 similar talks. At other places that I've gone, they look at that cutesy language and say, why are you doing that? Our audiences are very technical. They want keywords in those statements. They want it to be very driven for them to understand where to go.
Or a swear word. Swear words work too. But you also have to think about, again, what do you want to present about? Because don't just put it all on the conference committee. I got a secret for you guys. I've presented at so many conferences. Most of the time, the conference committee has no idea what they're looking for until you hand it to them and say, this is an important topic for this community. But you know, sometimes you're going to submit to conferences and you're not going to get in. And listen, that's just the way it is, because on the other hand, the other extreme, you also have conference committees that know exactly what they're looking for. Some of them have their speaker slots booked out before you even submit your proposal. So don't take it too harshly if you don't get into the conference you want to get into. Try again. Try another conference. Try the next year. Just because you didn't get accepted doesn't mean it's not a good idea, and it doesn't mean that you shouldn't pursue it elsewhere.
And a great idea is to reach out also to that selection committee. Again, they want to pick quality presentations. So if you think that there might have been an issue for why they didn't do it, ask them honestly, why did you not select my presentation? And say that you want that feedback so you know how to better craft your presentation for the next time. Most of them will be perfectly happy to give you that kind of advice. Next, let's talk about developing your deck and building out your idea. So this is where we're going to talk about speech, and we're also going to talk about the visuals that you put behind your presentation.
And this is your unique voice, even if it's on a woefully unoriginal topic, which can happen, but you can always give it a unique spin.
I often start by thinking about metaphors and analogies for what I'm going to talk about, because they're a great way to frame complex subjects or put it in a frame of reference that maybe people more have a common frame for in the audience. Pop culture in this area is really your friend for developing that. Most of us have touchstones to whatever is really trending right at the moment, and that's a great way to frame that. Sometimes you go deeper for finding those pop culture references. In 2014, I gave a series of talks about home pages and how organizations will wall off their homepage and treat it like it's a first line of defense against incoming users. And I made an analogy on how that relates to the Maginot Line, which is how the French tried to protect their borders against the Germans at the beginning of World War II. By reframing it this way, it opened a lot of eyes for people in those audiences, and I got a lot of mileage out of that presentation that year.
Hi, my name is Karlyn, and I like the Insane Clown Posse. And in 2011, I gave my High Web Red Stapler winning talk called What Colleges Can Learn from the Insane Clown Posse. And I still have people tell me how much they love this talk today. I have not given it in 5 years. And you know, the thing about it is, it wasn't an original topic. It was a branding talk. It was saying you guys need to do different things and just framing it in the Insane Clown Posse.
Last year at Milwaukee, Lisa Cato gave a presentation about how she learned lessons on how to work as a one-woman office by the lessons she learned from Jane Austen heroines. And so she did a lot of analogies back and forth from that. She also came dressed in full
garb.
Full regalia, and it was quite impressive.
Yes. I love Jesse Lavery's presentation from last year. He based it all around the blues, and he had like 10 different blues songs that he played to back up the points he was making about getting stuff done in higher ed in his presentation.
At the Healthcare Experience Design Conference that I went to in 2011, a person from the Toronto hospital system, her name is Valerie Mays, did a piece on usability testing. And her skill was art, so she hand drew every one of the slides that she had in her presentation, which was really great. I especially like this usability study ninja here. You'll see he's at this table saying, "What do you think?" And there are free cookies on the table for people who stop by.
And then one of my favorite Jeff Stevens presentations of all time, Robocop.
Thank you. Yes, in this one I used an example of people crowdfunding a Robocop statue in Detroit to talk about principles of how we could use crowdfunding in higher education. So all of these ideas of how you can use analogies and metaphors in there can also work wonders for talking to faculty and administrators. I could take that history talk and change it up just a little bit and go to the history department at Liberal Arts and Sciences and explain a concept to them that would work very well. Oftentimes when I'm talking to people in our hospital system for their sites, I often turn towards medical terminology. Now, I tend to keep that very light, because if your analogy is completely wrong about their subject matter, that could go very poorly.
And then there's sometimes that the analogies don't go quite as well as we'd like them to.
Yeah, sometimes you can get too enamored with your theme. So this was a presentation I gave a couple of years ago where I tried to talk about how concepts of evolution tie to web governance and content strategy. And I really thought a long time about this analogy, and I dug into a bunch of different evolutionary theories. I went and spoke to several of the biology professors on campus. This is a great image from a book called Science Made Stupid. If you can find a copy of this book, it's the best book on the planet. And I made sure that I understood all of those concepts, and I had it down pat. But when I took it and I showed it at presentations, 25% of people liked it, but 75% of people went, "Wow, that was really, I don't really want to know that much about evolutionary biology," and it kept me from really listening to what you had to say about the web, which was my important thing. It was the message that I wanted to say. Mm-hmm. In 1912, Arthur Quiller Couch, while talking about the art of writing, stated this, and this has often been quoted and re-quoted by different authors throughout time. And he said, "Whenever you feel an impulse to perpetrate a piece of exceptionally fine writing, obey it wholeheartedly and delete it before sending your manuscript to press. Murder your darlings. Don't get so tied to a great slide that you're like, I think this is fantastic. If it doesn't work for the talk and it throws off the tone, you should get rid of it."
Which is why we nixed our original theme for this presentation and instead went with the highly intuitive Sound of Music / Legos theme.
Make presentations great in 2016. So what you need to do while you're beginning the talk, you need to begin by planning your narrative. You need to be able to structure your presentation as a scaffold. Start with the major points that you want to say, and then fill in the rest. Dave Cameron also suggests the standard story structure for your talk. So that would be introduction, rising action, climax, and conclusion.
So let's say this another way. Know what you're going to say before you start putting the presentation together. And a rule of thumb that I always like to start by is you've got to end with something inspirational, okay? Because people love walking out of the room and feeling really good. You want to send them out at a high. So start with that.
A great way to do that is using personal stories, either your own personal stories or ones that resonate. And that's a great way also to introduce the story at the beginning. It puts people in a setting for when you get into the challenging middle part, they've already put it into a human frame of reference, and then end it that same way once you get to the end. Empathy is a powerful tool for connection.
Yeah, and the thing about stories, too, is that it gives you a way to connect with your audience emotionally. Authenticity is another way to do that. Love this quote from Amy Grace Wells, which says, an experience is easier to talk about authentically.
So we started by saying you start with an outline when you do this. Oftentimes, that's as far as I go for filling it in. I create bullet points, and then I use that outline as I give my speech, and just go from those bullet points and kind of talk from the hip as I go.
Yeah, and I, on the other hand, I do it completely differently. I actually start by opening up PowerPoint, and I put one idea on every slide, and I literally script out every single word that I want to say about that slide. Every single word. And it's not that I use a script. Obviously, I do not have a script in front of me right now. But it's a way to help. It's a way that helps me think through how I'm going to speak about each element. And I might not use those exact words when I actually give the presentation, but it's really helpful when I'm starting out.
But whichever one of these techniques that you use, the most important thing is to talk it out. Stand up and pretend you're presenting and say it. What would you say? Put yourself in front of a mirror, do that kind of practice.
Yeah, pretend you've got an audience in front of you.
So next we want to talk a little bit now about building slides. You've got your speech put together. How are you going to put those slides together after that?
And you got to keep in mind, you are the main attraction for your presentation, although we are definitely being overshadowed by some of these slides because they're amazing. But the slides are your backup dancers, right? People are coming to see you and listen to your experience and your expertise.
So one of the first questions most people ask while building their slide deck is, how many slides should you have? And our answer is 252 million slides. No, but really, you can have as many slides as you need. More slides is not a bad thing. Karlyn and I both usually have decks of around 130 to 150 slides for a 45-minute talk. However, some other people might have a different suggestion.
If you talk to Ron Bronson, he's going to say no more than 20 slides ever.
Very emphatically. But the most important thing is whichever way you decide to go, what you're trying to do is make slides that don't confuse people. So this is a slide that was put together by a consultancy company, this one right here, during the Afghanistan war, that was trying to explain how the interrelationship of groups in the country affected stabilization. And, well, this is the kind of slide that in most presentations they would say, oh, don't worry about trying to read this, they'll send it out in the notes afterwards. And it shouldn't be in the slide. General Stanley McChrystal, after seeing this, said, if we understood that slide, we'd win the war. What you're wanting to try and avoid is you're wanting to avoid cognitive overload when you look at the slide. Dr. Chris Atherton did a study looking at psychology and user experience with slides and presentations. And what he saw was when you have a slide that's full of a lot of bullet points, what you're doing is you're causing multitasking in the audience. And because of them trying to task switch between reading the bullet points and writing them down, even if you tell them, I'll send you the slide deck, they'll write them down. They're not listening to you speak because they're trying to do 3 different things at once. So another thing that you have a problem with there too with the bullet points is you also get that serial effect. If I have a list of bullet points on the screen, you're going to remember the first 2. You might remember the last 2. But anything that's in the middle, you're going to tend to forget. That happens with any long list along that kind of line. So our recommendation is you only do 1 point per slide.
Jeff, what about that slide you did with all the bullet points?
Well, I ran out of time, and I just needed to throw that slide
But we're
together.
standing up here in front of a group of people.
I have heard quite enough about this.
I'm not finished yet.
Oh, yes, you are, Captain. Fraulein. Did you get all that? Good. We're going to take a quick break.
No, we're not. I'm still not finished yet. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about messaging. And one of the things I would say that's so critical for your presentations is you've got to be bold, not only in messaging, in your slide design. This is your chance, guys, to get up in front of a room of people who are there to listen to you and say whatever you want to say. So don't be afraid to go outside of what you've seen people do before. You can even, use motion, use GIFs, use video. Yes.
Let's talk about video.
Let's talk about video.
Video gives both. When we talked about that task switching, if you listen to us talk just straight for 45 minutes, we might start drowning out. You might go, okay, we've heard their shtick, and we're like, okay. So with the video, that gives you a great break point. It gives them a chance to switch the person that they're hearing from. It gives them a moment to recollect. It also gives a speaker a good time to do that. If you think you can't get through 45 minutes and you need 2 minutes for a water break, you can jump in and get that water while it's playing.
Yeah, so
and we're going to play a quick video while we have a water break.
Yeah.
If I can find the mouse.
Of Michael Feenan from Hyatt Web 2010 or 11, I think. And pay attention to his slides as he's talking.
So to get started, what I want to do is I want to get everybody, audience participation first thing. I want everybody to read with me. I'm going to count down 3, 2, 1, and I'm going to click the slide.
Right, so why y'all do that?
There. I swear it's not bad. Sort of. Okay, but will everybody promise me that to start?
You say read out loud?
Yes, read out loud. I want everybody to say it. I want you to shout it at me, okay? So I'm going to go 3, 2, 1.
We suck.
Awesome. That was better than I could have expected. No, I do that for a reason, though. I want to start this presentation as low as humanly possible so that we have nowhere to go but up, right? So that's a good way to get things rolling, I think. But no, really, what I want to do is, this is not a bad presentation, and I'm not going to be disparaging anybody as much as I like to. I actually have 3 goals. And the 3 goals I want you guys to walk away from this presentation with is, first, I want to inspire you a little bit, right? I want you to walk away from here with some ideas, maybe some thoughts, something you can take back and go, maybe we could do this. The second thing I want is I want to motivate you, right? And this kind of goes back to what Doug told us during orientation. You're going to go away from here with tons and tons of ideas. Try to do one of them. That's all you really need to worry about. And I don't care if it has anything to do with what I talk about. I don't care if I give you motivation to do something you got out of another presentation. Just go do something. The third is the hard one, though. The third one is the one that takes a little bit of time and effort, and that's, I want to get your brain into a mode to think about how to innovate. Because innovation is what's really hard about what we do, right? It's hard to go out there and be new and be cutting edge and always be out there doing and coming up with all this new stuff. And that's sort of the crux of what I'll be talking about today, is this idea that we're all starting to work in this zone, and we need to get out of that zone.
All right. Now, I know they're a little hard to see, but what did you guys notice about his slides?
Very simple.
Yeah. They have one word. One word. And I love that presentation of his, because I mean, what was really impressive is he did that with 125 more slides. It was, if you don't present, it's very, very hard to do. But it just shows you that you don't need to have big, bold graphics. You don't need to have all this overly designed stuff. You can have a simple template and just use one word, and that can be just as powerful. Anyone can do that.
Yep. An important thing in doing that is figuring out which fonts you want to use. So if you've ever, Joel isn't here, he's in another presentation, but find Joel Goodman and talk to him about typography, or find the link that we put in there. He'll talk to you a lot about the importance of having fine typography, like the Sound of Music slide. So if you don't have an eye for doing that, there are lots of online resources that will help you with figuring out font pairings that you can do, almost like wine pairings. So you can find 2 really good fonts that work for that and build from that. Next, we want to talk a little bit about stock photos.
Yeah, I'm a very big fan of stock photos because I am not a designer. And I have spent, stock, are we moving?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
I got you.
Okay. So, stock photos, obviously, you have to spend some money to go buy them. They're not free. I think if you're going to be presenting on the regular, I think it's a good investment to make. You get to a point where you have a huge library to choose from, and there are so many sites right now that are really, really affordable with stock photography. So that's my recommendation.
Now, oftentimes, I don't have the budget for stock photography when I'm working, so I aim more to use Creative Commons licensed photos when I go in. And Flickr's a fantastic resource for doing that. I wouldn't recommend using Flickr's search tool for that, though. I would use this other tool, which is called CompFight. It's a terrible name, but it's a fantastic website. It's a search engine that allows you to look for photos within Flickr. You can, over here, you switch it to Creative Commons, so you get the rights-free images as long as you make sure that you do the proper things for Creative Commons. But when you get your thumbnails, when you mouse over these, this little blue bar drops down and tells you what the dimensions of that image are going to be in height and width. So you can find the ones that are right for your presentation and download those. Once you get them, though, it's very important that you make sure that you attribute those sources. In the past, I used to do that at the end. I'd have one slide at the end. I'd do photo credits. And if you're working on a 140-slide deck and you're trying to list 140 on there, it's really terrible. So you just take a little space at the bottom in the corner, make it unobtrusive, but make sure that you give people credit for the images that you're using.
You mean I can't just pull images off the internet, Jeff?
No, Karlyn, we're not faculty. So copyrighted material is a bit of a complicated issue. We're kind of skirting the line a little bit with our presentation today. Because this is a non-education, non-for-profit use, I think this is covered by fair use. I think once we get past the couple of images that we use, we've maybe used 2 minutes of a 3-hour movie. So I think we're probably going to be pretty good. But recognize the fact that right now we're doing it for nonprofit, but if Karlyn were going to do one that was a for-profit presentation, she wouldn't go this direction because she would be opening herself up quite a bit.
Yes.
And again, we're not lawyers, and this is a very gray area, but this is the direction that we've decided to go today. Consider your conference, too. I've gone to a couple of conferences where they've told me my slide deck can't have anything copyrighted in it because they intend to put it on their site, and they think that they're going to be open for liability afterwards.
I've gone to conferences where they told me not to badmouth the organizers. Just got to know what's happened there.
So
Oh, choosing a platform. No. Okay, choosing a platform. Now, one of the biggest debates you'll find around people presenting is, do I use PowerPoint? Do I use Keynote? Do I use this new flashy tool that's just come on the market? You know what? The thing of it is, it doesn't matter. You have to use what you're comfortable with. For all the hate that PowerPoint gets, I find PowerPoint to frankly be the easiest thing to use, and so I use it for all of my presentations. And then, Jeff sometimes...
Except for this one.
Except for this one, which we were using Google Slides, because we had to do it together at a distance.
And a big distance.
So it made sense if you're being collaborative.
One thing that you can do with that longer deck is use it for visual cues. So if you think that you're going to have problems with your speech and you don't want to keep looking at presenter notes while you're giving it, making sure that the image also can give you a cue for what you are going to say. Like, for instance, several of our quotes, we make sure that we have the titles of who said them big enough that if we have to look at the slide, we can remind ourselves about them. Or use a giant question mark if you're going to talk about visual aids, and the Riddler, and that will make you remember. Use whatever mnemonic kind of works for you in that kind of way. But you also want to go deeper than just the slide deck, and also deeper than just what you're saying back and forth to the audience.
Yeah. You want to make sure that you're getting the audience involved at some point, which we will probably do in a Q&A later today. But another trick you can do is to, have them get up out of their chair. You can do exercises. If you're doing longer trainings with folks, you've got to build exercises in there because it gives them a chance to get the blood moving and actually brings them back more engaged with your presentation.
You also want to use props. Now, we didn't put any pine cones in anyone's seats today, but this is a great prop right here, which we'll use afterwards. And if you can get one of these for a conference, this is great for the question and answer session at the end. It builds up energy. You don't have to have someone running around the room with a microphone, which always gets awkward because everyone kind of sits like this, and then one person says, I could just yell out my question, and they're never loud enough. But this, you can throw it. Just don't hit people in the head like the Von Trapp kids in the Baroness, and you'll be fine. Also, you want to reward the back channel. So you've heard from a couple of people today who've been sending out tweets that they put out with their thing. Unfortunately, doing the back channel can sometimes be really difficult. There was a great tool for Keynote once upon a time. I'm being very wistful now. It was a small program that someone created that when you switched from one slide to another, it would send a tweet to your Twitter account automatically when you made that switch. Unfortunately, every time Twitter changes their API or Apple changes Keynote, it breaks for like 8 months, and then it's available for 2 months, and then it goes away again. So the way that we normally get around that, and how most presenters that do this, is they're using pre-scheduling to do it. They're using Buffer, they're using Hootsuite to do it.
Yeah. And practice, practice, practice. Now, it's a little bit hard when you don't live in the same place to practice, so Jeff and I kind of had to improvise a little bit. But you know what? It's so important that you get down what you're going to say. Again, literally, I get up and I pretend in my office that I'm presenting in front of people. I pretend I have an audience right in front of me. I don't do this around other people because, frankly, I'm a much harder critic on myself than other people tend to be. But some people like practicing in front of people.
I like to practice more in front of an audience because I think I get more constructive feedback from it. I don't always get the opportunity to do it. Sometimes my team will allow me to do it. Sometimes what I do is I set up a camera to record myself beforehand so I can watch myself. That's a bridge in between our two. Another way to do it is if you're really set on giving that presentation at a big conference, perhaps there's a couple of smaller conferences before it that you can give it and iron out the wrinkles before you give it to that larger audience. Next, we're going to talk about presenting.
Presenting, the big day. We are half an hour into a presentation on presenting.
Awesome.
And we're finally getting to presenting.
Yes. So,
Number one rule of advice.
get a clicker.
Unless Google Slides.
Google Slides doesn't support a clicker, which is why I am standing here pressing these instead of walking around.
But now we know for next time.
Yes, and we will prepare for that. So you should move around. I'm going to move around now because I can walk away from it. I can use my hands, take up the space. You have this room. You need to command the audience. You also need to be able to get eye contact with everybody. If I'm right here, I'm sorry, I haven't looked at this side of the audience as much as I have this side because of where I'm standing, and that's why I should move around.
Yeah, but, where'd it go?
What?
Jeff.
No, this is right. This is right.
All right, but you also need to get in the right headspace before you even present. Now, have any of you seen the Amy Cuddy talk with the Wonder Woman pose? Yeah, so if you stand like a superhero for 2 minutes in a bathroom stall where no one can see you, you will raise your testosterone, you'll reduce your stress level, and then you'll come in like a powerhouse to be able to do your presentation. And, there are two types of speakers. Those that are nervous and those that are liars. So the idea here is that, look guys, every time I at least get up to give a talk in front of a group of people, I have nervous energy. Every single time. I've been doing this for 10 years. And you probably have nervous energy too. Now, I was reading a really interesting book a couple of weeks ago, and it was by this guy that said, look, when I tried to repress that energy and just felt really calm and zen and all that stuff, my talk sucked because he didn't have that fire behind him. So that nervous energy can cause you to go into stage fright, or it can be the thing that fuels you to give a great presentation.
You also need to go and visit the space. So most conference rooms are going to be the same, but not all conference rooms are created equally. I remember one time I came into one that instead of being this way, it was this way, and the presentation thing was in the middle, and there were giant 2x2 columns that broke up the room on either side. So the audience that was on the left and the audience on the right couldn't see them at all. You could only see that group that was right in the middle, unless you walked, and you needed to walk a lot. Now, luckily, the conference people had adjusted by putting 2 screens on either side for those poor souls who were in the corners. But you need to see that space so you can adjust what you're planning to do.
And you need to own the space, guys. That is your room when you are getting up and presenting. I did a presentation, well, it wasn't really a presentation, it was a training a couple weeks ago for a company. They brought me in to do a day-long training with their manager staff. And I was feeling a little nervous about this because I don't do many like full-day trainings where I have to be on display the whole day. And I was talking to my coach about it, and he gave me some very helpful advice. He said, Karlyn, you need to go in there and you need to mount them. Mount that room.
You should be silly when appropriate. Now, for a presentation at a conference, that's great to be silly. You might not do this if you're giving a presentation to your senior leadership. Some of these other techniques will work wonders, but know where your limits are with the audience that you're working with. Hi, PSU Web.
Hello. All right, and if it's helpful for you, I often think of myself as having a presentation persona that is a little bit more amped up than my normal day-to-day persona. And it might help you to think of it as putting on a mask. You're an actor, you're giving a presentation, you're entertaining people. If it helps you to think of it as a play, do it as a play, with song even, sometimes. Oh. And what did I want to say?
You were going to say Wonder Woman pose.
Wonder Woman
here.
pose. We already did the Wonder Woman pose.
Practice confidence. It comes back to what we were saying before. Have
I knew I had to say it at one point.
Yes. Don't read too much into the body language of the room, too. Like right now, actually, we've got a lot of eye contact here, but sometimes when you're in a conference, a lot of people are going to be down here on your phones. a lot of times people are down on their phones. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're not listening to you, especially when there's a vibrant Twitter back channel that's happening in the room. They might be, but you can't let that dissuade you from having your confidence in front of the room. You need to be able to continue to go and move forward from that. Find that one person that you are making eye contact with and use them as a touch point. Make sure that you keep coming back to them. And then be prepared for the gaffes. So you're going to have technical gaffes. Sometimes fonts won't load. Sometimes someone might be working with live coding during a presentation and the Wi-Fi drops out. Hi, Sven.
Sometimes clickers don't work.
Was that last year or the year before last? We saw Lori Packer presenting once where her computer went into Windows Update mode in the middle of the presentation. And there was no way for her to make it stop. It just went into it. Now, she had practiced her presentation enough that she was able to go through her next 5 slides. And when it came back up, she started back up without missing a beat and was able to continue to go, which was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen.
So, and a big word of wisdom here from our friend Robin in the front row, you gotta relax. This is a presentation. It's not the end of the world. And you know what? The people in the audience, they're rooting for you. They want you to do well. They don't want to come in and see a presentation that sucks. So relax, take a breath. Have a sip of water if things start going awry or you start hacking up a lung in your presentation like I did this morning.
Remember, everything is going to be okay.
It's going to be okay, guys.
Make sure that you give time for questions. We're almost not going to give you time for questions. Sorry about that.
We're going to be close.
This is also the time when imposter syndrome strikes, because once you get to the end of your practice presentation, you're like, I'm going to have to wing questions, and this is when they're going to know that I don't know what I'm talking about. So be sure, if you don't know the answer, be honest. Say, you know what, I don't know that answer, but I'll get back to you. And make sure you get their contact information and follow up with them. Go to the Twitter channel and let them know when you do find the answer, or put them in contact with somebody that you know who is a resource that can give them that answer. Finally, we're going to talk about building a repertoire.
Yeah, super quick.
Super quick. We'll be much
I
faster
want to
now.
get some questions.
So
look, guys, what a lot of seasoned presenters do is they'll have 1 or 2 or a couple presentations that they take and they go to multiple conferences with. And that's frankly the really smart way to do it if you're really trying to get into speaking, because it's one of those things that you're going to make improvements along the way. You're going to figure out things you can say better, do better.
it gives you a chance for enrichment. So a lot of times I use that to stretch my professional development money. By putting in those presentations, I'm able to get discounts or be able to get into places for free. And when professional development funds are at a premium, it's a great way to stretch that dollar and get out there.
And you can get paid for it too.
Later, yes, you can.
Later.
We were going to say here that once you do that, you can have a portfolio on your site.
Yes.
So when you do get to that paid period,
Yep.
when people start seeking you out, you have this list of presentations that you've given in the past that they can pick and choose from, or say, I'd like you to do something similar from that.
Exactly.
So let's bring it all together. In closing, climb every mountain, ford every stream, follow every rainbow. No, wait, that's not where we wanted to go here. We wanted to tell you, you should follow the rules. Captain Von Trapp would tell you that we've given you rules here, but that's not quite true. The rules are exactly what you want to make them. You need to follow the rules of your heart, like Maria. Maria was able to change those rules and do something that worked particularly for her, and it was herself and her unique self, and bringing that to the forefront. It's about having confidence in confidence alone and in your unique voice.
Yes.
One final story, because we bring it home with a personal story. Coming back to that Robocop one, I had done that as an example of how you could use crowdfunding in higher education. And it wasn't something that I had done. I just went in there as an inspirational speech and said, these are things that you could do to bring ideas from Kickstarter in. Afterwards, I learned from a couple of schools that had been doing it, but I also learned from the webmaster from Butler College. They had decided to take back what I had talked about, and they did a crowdfunding campaign to build a memorial for their bulldog mascot on their campus. And they used most of the techniques that I had talked about in that. And later, they also used that as part of a crowdfunding initiative while they were doing the remodel of the Hinkle Fieldhouse, where they played basketball in the movie Hoosiers. They didn't use it for the capital campaign, but they used it for some of the smaller athletic improvements that they were trying to make to the campus. And really, that's what we're trying to do when we present up here. It's not about us, and it's not about what we're saying. It's about having a conversation with you and sharing what we've learned, but also learning from you. With great PowerPoint comes great responsibility.
And look, guys, we all build each other up, right? And if you guys remember my presentation this morning, it's all about serving. It's all about helping each other. Those of us that came up in web, there weren't places you could go to take classes. You had to learn from your peers. And that's what I love about places like this, because there's still, once you learn how to do something, there's a little bit of an obligation to share it with the community so you can help build other people up.
That's right. We're all growing together when we do this. Again, we don't have to go it alone. We're all here for each other.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for coming. The end.
The end.
This is Karlyn.
This is Jeff.
This is where you can find us on Twitter and where you can find us online. And now we'd like to open it up for questions.
For 3 minutes. Yeah. Oh.
It worked.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. So if we're instructing everybody to have a PowerPoint or some sort of slide presentation, do you think that there's any value in standing out by not doing that and just being yourself as the presenter without visuals behind you?
I think there's a tremendous amount of value in doing that if you can pull it off. I know for me, especially with longer talks, I need some sort of visual cue to tell me what I was going to say next. But I think if you can pull it off, there's tremendous value in that, yeah.
Yeah. The minimalist thing, like Ron was saying with the 20 slides, is probably the closest that beginning speakers could probably get to that. But it'd probably take a lot of work to get to that level.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect.
Oh, you gonna throw it?
No, I'm not
Okay.
throwing it. I'm just sending it across the table.
Being Curtis in the head.
So, the question about bullet points. What's your advice to those that cannot present without bullet points on the slides? Ideally, a lot of them. Levels.
That's where I normally what I would do is I would say at the beginning, these are the points I want to make, and I would take those bullet points and break them out into one individual slide. If they're using it to remember the things that they want to say in it, that's better because each one of them comes up and gives them a visual cue for saying it, and it's easier for the audience to take that in. If there are too many, they're going to be writing too many at once. And always that person with all those bullet points is going to forget one. We had a video in here that was great that we had to cut because of time, but he said, look at these 3 bullet points. And after he got to the 3rd one at the bottom, said, and a 4th forgotten one. And that's what happens when you get to that level. So if you can get them away from that, if they do have to have bullet points for that, one way that you could merge those two. So have the first one that says, this is what we're going to cover, and have the 5 bullet points, and say, we're going to talk about each one of these one by one, which gives the audience an audio cue that they don't have to write down all 5 of them because you're going to continue after that and go through them one after another.
And you can use the speaker notes too. If you need to put bullet points in the speaker notes for yourself, then that's another way to get around it.
Yep. Thank you. Do we have any other questions? No?
All right.
Oh.
Sven?
Oh.
I just wanted to say for anyone that's been rejected as a presentation proposer, that may not be about your proposal or about you. It may just be about programming decisions. Planning conferences, we always have to reject presentations from amazing presenters and from our friends and from new presenters we really want to feature. It always has to happen. So it can be like a curatorial decision and not a personal one.
Yeah, absolutely.
One time I got rejected from a conference that I really wanted to present at, but then they emailed me and said, here's a free registration just for submitting an idea. And I was like, wow, all of the benefit, none of the work. Excellent. This is fantastic.
Well,
All right.
Oh, yes.
Any suggestions for presenting, like if you're doing something that has like code snippets?
Code snippets. That
I
could
mean,
be.
because I
Yeah.
always find that they're really hard to see, and they're sometimes, I don't know, I struggle with that.
Since I've never really presented with programming.
Sven, do you have advice about that?
Sven can talk about that because he's done that. And live coding, which is an incredibly,
While changing outfit.
yes.
Some presentation frameworks will allow you to embed code that's been highlighted using syntax highlighting tools. I like some of the web-based presenting tools because they'll let you use JavaScript libraries that will mark the code up in a language-appropriate way. But when I haven't had those, I've taken a screenshot of my editor and put that in there. Even though it's not text, at least it looks familiar to programmers, and that can help.
What about also maybe printing out? If you're showing the screenshot of the script, could you print it out and share that as a handout to the people in the room? Would that?
Yeah, you could. I haven't presented in that context. I'm usually going to
Okay.
make the slides available later, and that would be an alternative. But yeah,
Yeah.
that could work. If it was about
If you had
teaching
enough time,
programming.
and that's hard to do at a
Yes.
conference because you're trying to carry around too much stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well.
All right.
So
So
long,
long,
farewell, auf Wiedersehen, adieu, 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 to you and you and you.
That really needs to get turned into a GIF. I need a GIF of Karlyn spinning.